Hello, everybody. Now, the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization and the mainstream media are pushing a new fear narrative about something called Disease X. Now, Disease X doesn't actually exist, but apparently they're already developing a vaccine for it. And the BBC did a little news snippet of a reporter who's gone into the UK's top secret chemical and biological research facility at Porton Down in Wiltshire to interview scientists and look at them as they are developing new vaccines for such a disease. There's also the World Economic Forum's annual Jolly in Davos coming up next week, and there is going to be a meeting about this mysterious disease X and the implications for us and how we might all need to do whatever they say for a new health emergency for this thing. And of course, coming up in May afterwards is the World Health Assembly. And that's going to be in Geneva, same country actually, both in Switzerland. But in May, they're all going to be meeting in Geneva to discuss the new World Health Organization pandemic preparedness treaty and changes to the International Health Regulations 2005 to make them stricter, toughen them up, so that if the WHO declares an emergency, perhaps for some new disease X, they can take control of the health policies of the member nations of the WHO and direct them in what to do to counter whatever new pandemic they might say is happening. Now, disease X, as I said, it's fear-mongering, basically. I'm not scared of Disease X because Disease X doesn't actually exist, and the WEF even says that it doesn't actually exist, but they're doing an awful lot of preparing for this thing as though it did exist. And, of course, how can you have a vaccine for something that doesn't exist? How can you prepare a vaccine for a disease that doesn't actually exist? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. So think about it. You can only possibly prepare a vaccine for a disease that does actually exist because you need to know what it is and have it characterized and understand what its protein structure is and so on in order to be able to make a vaccine for it. Now, I'm not saying anything about whether vaccines are good or bad. That's up for you to decide. Personally, I've never taken a COVID injection. I have never taken one for the flu either. In fact, I haven't taken any for a very, very long time. So, whether you get them or not, that's up to your choice. You have medical autonomy, or you should have anyway, regarding yourself and your own body and what medicines and injections you take into your own body. That should be up to you. We should not have any kind of coercion, such as what we had in the UK, which was no jab, no job regulations brought in by the government, which did tens of thousands of care home workers out of a job in 2021. And they were going to do the same to doctors and nurses in the NHS as well, but they relented just at the end after massive public pressure and obviously the Partygate scandal coming out, where we understand that the powers that be who are making all of these regulations to control and restrict the lives of everybody else were not in the least bit worried about a dangerous pathogen because they were all partying with each other in Downing Street. And, I'm sure you had similar things around the world in every other country that did anything that was tyrannical. So here we are. Propaganda is starting again this year for another Disease X, as it is now. Every time they do this, they get mocked. I mean, they've tried monkeypox, they've tried a new Omicron variant, all these kind of things last year. Now it's this Disease X. I've heard it all before, but they're up to something. And they got these big meetings of all the globalists getting together, and they're all going to fly up to Davos on their private jets. They'll probably tell us to stop using fossil fuels, or carbon-based fuels, as I should say. That's the correct word for what are normally called fossil fuels. That's a whole other story and a whole other video that I can make about that. There we go. Lots to do, lots to talk about this week. But there we go. You're going to hear a lot about this Disease X this week with the WEF Forum, World Economic Forum meeting. I would just ignore it. Well, ignore the substance of it, but no, these people are desperate to bring in more restrictions and more surveillance and more control over you, your movements and your finances. So they might not do it through this Disease X, which is a lot of nonsense, but they will. They're looking for ways to try to increase global control and restrict freedom for ordinary people while they continue swanning around on their private jets and going to lovely 5-star hotels and eating their caviar and wagyu beef or whatever it's called, and telling everybody else to eat vegetables or even stuff that's worse than vegetables. So there you go. That's what they're up to. No respect at all for those people. And I would ignore them, but keep a razor sharp eye on these people. And together, we are not going to let them do what they want to do.